I'm bringing you a conversation with a consummate diplomat, one who's not new to the African continent, particularly to West Africa, doing amazing work for the Republic of Namibia, particularly here in Ghana, also with eyes on Ivory Coast. She has served in many different capacities, appointed by the United Nations Secretary General, great various positions. Her Excellency Selma Ashipala Musavi is my guest. Good morning, madam.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for affording us the opportunity. How are you doing?
I'm great. Happy to be here.
How's Ghana treating you?
Wow, this is home. Very much at home.
Very much at home.
Yes.
How long have you been here?
A year and 5 months.
So far, so good?
So far, very good.
I see.
Yes.
Ghana and Namibia relations started, the pre-colonial eras, the struggle, the Nkrumah regime, President Rawlings entrenched it further. How would you say that relationship has panned out over the years?
I think the relationship between Namibia and Ghana are excellent. We cooperate, especially at the multilateral fora, at the African Union, the United Nations. What we need to do is to put economic content to those relationships, and that's why I'm here.
And I like the fact that you say we should be perhaps collaborating more than competing, which is why I'm excited about your partnership with Abanga Farms and Food System. How did that partnership come about?
Well, let me first contextualize the partnership. Right. Namibia and Ghana have got a bilateral cooperation framework agreement where we spell out various sectors in which we are going to cooperate. So this includes agriculture, health, education, and all that. But it also includes us bringing the private sector together. So last year when I arrived, I thought I need to find a way of introducing myself to the Ghanaian community, to the diplomatic corps, and I arranged an event. I've also invited the MITCO CEO to come and attend that event. And that was my way of introducing Namibian beef and other products to the community. So Mr. Abanga was one of them. He's the CEO of the Abanga Farms and Food System. We had about 20 companies. And he showed interest. And long story short, he signed a contract with MITCO to be the sole distributor of Namibian meat and meat products in Ghana.
Meat corporation in Namibia is big.
Yes,
exporting to the rest of the world. I know that you want to get now, in fact, you are in West Africa now.
Yes.
In Ghana. I saw the containers, amazing.
Yeah.
But Abanga Farms and Food Systems is also a wholly owned Ghanaian company.
Yes.
Would you say that partnership is really striking the chord that you intended for it to strike? And maybe, Oliver, you need to be putting the photos up so you see them.
I think so. Because we are talking about the African Continental Free Trade Area and enhancing intra-African trade. This is a classic example of what that agreement entails. Here we have cooperation between a public entity, which is MITCO, and a private company, which is the Abanga Farms and Food System.
That's right.
So I think we are on spot.
And the bigger vision for me,
Yeah.
What are you looking at?
First of all, I'm looking at consolidating the Ghanaian market. That's number one. Secondly, I'm looking at volumes. Thirdly, I'm looking beyond Ghana, talking about the entire West African region, which in itself will also bring SADC and ECOWAS together.
Do you hold the view that Africa can feed itself?
I think so. Africa can feed itself because I'm one person who believes that Africa is rich, but Africans are poor.
Why is that?
I think what is lacking is, one, political will, and secondly, we need a mind shift. We need to believe in ourselves. We need to believe in our own products.
Okay.
We need to believe that local is better. We need to believe that Africans can trade among themselves and succeed. We need to be proud of our identity, of our culture, who we are.
And until we do that, we can't feed ourselves, because food security and economic sufficiency, for me, those are the two key things. How do we ensure that while we are trying to collaborate, try to feed ourselves, we're also making money on the side for ourselves?
Let me take you back, because until you do that, we cannot feed ourselves.
Right.
Yes, until we do that, we'll be relying on others for consumer goods, as we are. Everybody's talking about the impact of COVID, the impact of the conflict in Europe,
Right.
that it has impacted food security in Africa.
That's right.
Which is not very close to the truth. We had issues with food security for a long time. But look at the arable land in Africa. If a country like Algeria can grow food in a desert, why can an African country with arable land not do the same, but rather opt to import? So we need to get, especially our young people, to get into agribusiness. Agriculture is a business. Someone said that the next billionaires from Africa will come from agriculture. So how do we entice the young people to basically take an interest in agriculture?
You're saying that this whole conversation about Russia, Ukraine, COVID, and blaming that on why perhaps we are not food sufficient, we are importing, is not close to the truth.
No, it's not. Because, I mean, we've been talking about food security long before COVID, long before the conflict in Europe. In fact, this is why the African Union have adopted a decade of nutrition,
Right.
a regional strategy for nutrition,
Right.
spanning from 2016 up to 2025. That in itself is a realization that we have a challenge here and something needs to be done. Every year, the African Union dedicates a theme to a year. And this year's theme is also on nutrition. So what does that tell you? We have a challenge and we need to do something about it. So the good thing is that at least we have realized that we need to feed ourselves.
Right. Question is how?
Question is how.
And you are proposing that we entice or attract young people to get into agribusiness.
Yes.
But on a continent where back in school, you offend the rules or the law, your teacher pulls a cane and they're coming for you, or they ask you to go and weed, you would have a certain mindset of people looking at farming as a form of punishment, if you will. How do we change that mindset?
I think it's advocacy. Advocacy and showing examples. Let me tell you what we have done in Namibia.
Right.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we have a lecture series that is named after our first foreign minister. And for the whole of this year, the theme was agribusiness, where we went to all the 14 regions talking about agriculture, getting experts and taking some of the young people who have actually succeeded in agriculture, because seeing is believing.
Right.
And we are hoping that through that mechanism, we can entice more young people to get into agriculture. That way, we will also stem urban migration, because everybody believes that you have to go to the city to make it.
Right.
But the land is right there waiting to be tilled, food to be produced, to be eaten locally and to be exported.
The biggest problem is not the land, then it becomes capital to start.
Exactly.
Do you think that the African continent, even though we recognize what our problem is, and that if we do nothing about it, we may be in dire situations, do you think that, for example, the banks are affording young people the facilities to be able to turn things around?
They are, but I think not sufficiently enough. Last year, I attended a summit which was held here in Ghana, the Youth Connect Africa Summit.
That's right.
And every young person, one after the other, was begging for access to financing and capital. They have the will, but they don't have the means. And maybe that is what the African banks really need to do,
Right.
to create mechanisms where our youth can access capital so that they can optimize the land.
You struck a chord, Your Excellency, about rural urban migration, particularly because everybody wants to move to the center as opposed to developing. In our country, Ghana, for example, you find the northern part of the country, very vast lands, arable lands, but everybody is gravitating towards here, even though the government has a project called Planting for Export and Rural Development, rearing for export and rural development. Do you see cliche in some of these things, not just for Ghana, I mean, across the continent of Africa, or do you see real work being done to make sure that we are putting money where our mouth is?
You know, last year I visited the northern region. And one thing that struck me is the similarity, the topography, the vegetation. It's exactly as northern Namibia. Now, urban migration in Namibia is especially from the north, where everybody goes to the city.
Right.
What we need to do is, I think we need to take some of these factories and put them in the rural areas.
Okay.
So that there are incentives to keep the young people there. Because talking about it will not help, because everybody needs to survive.
Right.
So what are incentives are we putting in place to keep the young people in the rural areas so that we don't only feed Africa, but we also can feed the world and make money in the process.
The Abanga story and
Yeah.
that example, Abanga does what? Rice, that's chicken, that's
Yes.
fish,
Yes,
that's meat now
Yes.
with Meat Co, that
Yes.
collaboration with you.
yes.
How do we institutionalize entities like Abanga Farms and Food System, working with Meat Co, so that people can actually learn from it? A shining example.
You see, what Namibia is doing, Meatco Abanga food system is a classic example. We
Right.
don't just want to end with meat exportation.
Okay.
We want to go beyond that and include exchange of expertise. And we are really hoping that this will be an incentive for other African countries, especially in terms of optimizing opportunities in the rural areas, that it can be done. You know, as I told you, there were more than 10 companies that were showing interest, but
Right.
Abanga Farms saw an opportunity.
Why did you select Abanga?
No, I did not select.
Not you. I'm
I
not
know,
saying
I mean,
you personally.
yeah.
I'm saying, why did you
Okay.
decide as a country to bank
Okay.
your hopes on?
Namibia did not select Abanga Farms and Food System.
Okay.
They selected themselves.
Okay.
They
how do you
chose
mean?
themselves. Because when the CEO of Meatco came to Ghana and we engaged so many companies, we even visited some of their cold storages. Everybody, all those companies were invited to come to Namibia, visit the Meatco plant, see how the cattle are slaughtered, the hygiene standard,
Okay.
and none of them took up the offer. It was only the Abanga Farms and Food System that
Okay.
did. So that's why I'm saying
They
they were not
selected-
chosen, they selected themselves.
They took advantage of the
They
of-
took
of the
advantage
situation.
themselves and even saw other opportunities.
Wow.
Yes,
I see.
yes.
Thomas Abanga.
Thomas Abanga. And you know, this is why I'm saying, I always say that when we talk about the African Continental Free Trade Area, we shouldn't just talk about movement of goods and services. In my view, what should permeate this is movement of people. Because I can come to Ghana as a tourist,
That's right.
just having fun.
That's right.
And then, you know, discover an opportunity. So this is what we need to do. African people must visit one another's country so that we also build confidence among ourselves, do away with unnecessary suspicion, see what other countries are doing.
Right.
Everything is right here on this continent.
I'm happy you talk about the Continental Free Trade Agreement.
Yeah.
It's headquartered here in Ghana.
Yes.
But if you look at the budgetary support that African countries, give in respect of agriculture, the majority of African countries are importing food from elsewhere than themselves. How does it make sense to have a continental trade, arrangement, and yet not be trading with each other, but be going outside? Why did we create that?
Well, trade is a process. It's not an event.
Right.
What we are doing now is to basically negotiate protocols that will operationalize the agreement.
Right.
I do attend most of those meetings, and I think there's really convergence in terms of what Africa need to do. There's going to be a meeting of the ministers of trade in 2 weeks for them to conclude consideration of these instruments. So it's a process. We are hoping that when a few countries succeed, others will follow suit. So I'm very optimistic.
You're very, very optimistic.
Very optimistic. If you lose hope, you lose everything.
Planting for food and jobs. I'm sure you heard about it.
I did.
What are your thoughts?
I think it's an incentive. It's a necessary incentive to entice people to take an interest in agriculture. Listen, we have to do everything possible to really make agriculture in Africa a reality. So if it works for Ghana, then it's good. Namibia would maybe consider something else. So we need to do everything. We need to do everything.
But your meat is already in Ghana.
Our meat is already in Ghana.
And I've seen you, shape it into different, different portions and different parts of the cattle, for example.
Yeah.
It's here. Why did you choose Ghana as it was the first West African country, right?
Yes. Well, first of all, I'm the High Commissioner of Namibia to Ghana. I'm based here. Charity starts at home.
Right.
But also because I thought that there's a market, there's a need. Just as Namibians are interested in shea butter. So I chose Ghana, and then after Ghana, I'll then go to other countries to which I'm concurrently accredited to. Listen, there's nothing on the cow that is wasted. Nothing.
Even the horns?
Even the horns. Everything is used for something.
Wow.
Everything is used for something. The horns, the hoofs are used for cars. The hide are used for mats.
Right.
So if you come to the Namibian High Commission, on the floor you will not find rugs from outside Africa. You will find cow hides. That's what we use for mats.
I see.
Yes.
I see. Let's talk quickly about tourism before we wrap up.
Yeah.
What about African tourism do we need to fix, first of all, before we get into the Namibian example?
I think what we need to do is to increase intra-African tourism. Let me tell you what I do with my family. Every other year, we go to a different African country. We have stopped going outside.
Oh, okay.
So we decided, let's get to know our continent first before we start patronizing others.
Beautiful.
Because that's what others do.
Beautiful.
Yes.
So that's what we need to do to fix it.
We need to travel to one another's countries so that we are no longer suspicious of one another. We consider ourselves as brothers and sisters. That's the mind shift. That's the task number one. That's what we need.
What is there to see in Namibia?
Oh, dunes, sand dunes. We are known for the tallest sand dunes in the world. You know, instead of going somewhere to the Middle East, come to Namibia, you have the highest sand dunes. And the major attraction is the convergence of the sand dunes with the Atlantic Ocean. And then we have the lowest density, second to only Mongolia. You can drive and just be yourself, with nature. Very friendly people.
I see.
I
see.
And then taste other products, not just the meat.
Like what?
Well, like grapes.
Grapes, okay.
Like dates.
Okay.
And if you are in love with somebody, you buy her a diamond. We are the third largest producer of diamond.
It comes with money.
Yes. If you love somebody, you have to spend on that person.
Your Excellency, your closing thoughts there. I'm happy about this partnership between Namibia particularly and Ghana.
Yeah.
And through that instrument with Abanga Food Farms and Food Systems and Namibian Meat Corporation. The bigger picture and the vision, for the future. What does it look like? And if I am a young entrepreneur, I'm also watching, how do I tap into this?
How do you tap into this? As I said, we are not just looking at importation of meat and other products. We are looking towards MITCO expanding, sharing its expertise with Ghana and other African countries, because we believe that it's important for Africans to cooperate, then compete. Because when we compete against each other, we lose.
But then somebody will say, traveling from one African country to the other, perhaps more tedious. I mean, take a look, you want to travel from Ghana to Nigeria via road, the number of stops you have to make and the cash you have to dole out, it's in itself a disincentive. So I'd rather pick a plane and fly.
Well, we have regional integration mechanisms. In the SADC region, you can travel to every SADC region by road. For now, of course, you have to fly if you want to come to Namibia, and I can tell you, we have the less tedious process in processing visa. You come to the mission, you get your visa within 10 minutes.
10 minutes?
Yep.
I'm in Namibia?
Yep.
I'm in Namibia now.
Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much
Selma.
for having me.